Good morning. I'm Jenny and I'm back at Family Art Club with another installment of our 3-week printmaking series. Last week we did scratch printing where we made these really cool prints with just foam, like from a styrofoam plate. And today we are going to be doing a special kind of printing called mono printing. So mono printing is, think about this first word here. Mono is one. So this is like, unlike this plate, which we've drawn into and we can print as many different times as we want, this style of printing, Ruby, sorry, my dog is hitting the tripod. That's what happens when we're recording from home. This kind of printmaking only creates one unique print, and it's more similar to drawing. So to begin with, what you're going to need are some kind of paper. I've got a bunch of really colorful, beautiful paper here. You could print on a collage. You could print on colored paper. You could print on white paper. This is just what I happen to have. Now, you'll notice, or maybe you won't because you're on video and not here in my room with me, but this is actually not construction paper. This is a colored copy paper. So in the museum, if you've come to our programs, you might notice that a lot of our paper that we use, we don't really use construction paper, just because if you ever want to do any gluing, construction paper and glue stick just really don't work very well together. Sorry, there's my dog again. Well, construction paper and glue stick really don't work well together because the glue stick and the construction paper, it's really easy for them to just pop off and not stick. So I like to use, in our programs, copy paper. This is a brand of copy paper called Astro Bright that really has like every color in the rainbow, and they're so beautiful and so vibrant and pretty affordable as well. So for today, I actually think I want to do this really beautiful paint color. And similar to last week, I'm just going to do some fields of color on top of it because I want my lines to be super interesting. So you could use, like I said, collage on top of it. You could use markers on top of it. Really anything you have laying around the house. Because of the quickness with how these dry, I'm going to use these quick sticks, which are temper paint in a kind of a glue stick container. And I'm just going to add some fields of color. So by the time, this will be dry in just a second, like 90 seconds, I think. So it's like temper paint, so it's not super opaque. So if that's something that you're interested in, I would use something else. But I really just want, when I print, for there to be more than just one color below my lines. Similar to this guy from last week, which was also quick stick. So I also, want to keep some of this beautiful purple, but know that pink. But maybe I'm inspired by my shirt that I'm wearing today. Just want all the colors lately. All about it. You could do something like if you're doing, I'm planning on just going to show you with how this works with an abstract print. If you wanted to draw something that was more realistic, sorry, that's my dog, you could actually think about what your background was going to be. So if I was going to do like a landscape, I might do like some blue in the sky where I knew my sky was going to be, maybe some purple, and then like greens and yellows and maybe some flowers things on the where my ground was going to be. But for this one, I'm just going to do abstract. So I'm really just kind of looking for like almost like this tie-dye effect. I'm inspired by my shirt. And I'm adding a little more pink to the areas just to kind of like pinken them up. So the great thing about these is they dry in about 90 seconds. So you can really kind of just go for it. And then they're definitely going to be dry by the time we're ready to print. I love that vibrant green. Some of them obviously are more opaque than others, so you can kind of experiment. And I like how they layer, and you can kind of, they keep that transparent quality, so by the time, so you can kind of see the previous colors underneath. So I just kind of filled my paper with some color, just for fun. I'm going to set this to the side. This is going to be what we print on. So as far as the actual printing process goes, you're going to need, for this technique, some kind of, I like to use like a pan or a dish. If you use like you could use like a glass baking dish. That's my dog again. She snores. You could use a glass baking dish. You just want to make sure that it's smooth on the bottom and it doesn't have like a branding imprint. So I was going to use a glass baking dish, but all of mine are Pyrex brand and it's like right there on the bottom, and I want to make sure that I have a nice smooth bottom, so I'm using just like a metal baking, some kind of pie pan or something. I'm also going to use just like a metal sheet pan from, I think this is from Dollar Tree. They're really great. I buy these like in bulk for our making stuff, like for the museum, because you can use them for so many different things. So I'm actually just going to squirt some paint. I'm using, this is that washable tempera again. I love it. You could also, I'm doing black because I want it to really pop against all the colors. You could do white as well. White would be awesome, and you could draw on top of it when you were done. And then you just kind of swirl these around, and you want to get your foam roller brush on here, like really kind of, and then you just squeeze it on here. If you have plexiglass or something, that's the traditional plate that like printers use. They'll use like a glass or a plexiglass plate. If you have glass or plexiglass, that would work really well too. I'm gonna get a little bit of texture in this just because it has this non-stick coating on it. If you use glass, it will work better, but like I said, I had all of my cookware with glass had a branding on it, and I didn't want that. So I'm just going to use this texture And I think it'll still look cool. So once you have like a nice even coating, you can use Q-tips, or I've got some like foam. You could use like, a lot of times I use like business cards or old like credit cards. They're like a really nice kind of scraper. This is some of that foam that we used last week for our printmaking. And you can just like set this out and then just kind of have at it drawing into your plate. So I'm just gonna do some shapes. I'm not really, I could have had more of a plan, but I didn't. You could always like do this multiple times and layer with different colors, like as you print. You could draw like pictures. You don't want to do any letters, because think about like when you look in the mirror or something, what happens to the letters when you take a picture of them? It's just like that. It becomes the reverse. And so all your letters are going to be backwards. So I like to really focus kind of more on shapes or drawings rather than messages. But this is just kind of fun. You don't want to move too slowly because you don't want your paint to dry. If it does dry, sometimes I'll keep a spray bottle on hand, and you can like kind of spritz it, and that'll buy you a little extra time, but it's not going to dry that fast. And just think about when you're doing this, like I'm taking away quite a bit of my black paint, just because I want to see my beautiful colorful background that I just drew. So kind of think about what it might look like when you print, because if you want more black, you can leave more of it plain, but if you want to see more of your paper behind it, you want to cover more of that up or take away more paint. So here I'm kind of using not sure I love this, but for this one I'm just going to kind of experiment and see how this texturing works. You can always, the thing about this is it's like a nice smooth canvas, and you can always roll on more paint. You notice that like as I'm doing this, if I'm going more like this, I'm spreading the paint, and if I'm going like this, I'm squeegeeing the paint. So I'm not really sure what that's going to look like, but we'll try it. This is nice and dry now, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay it on here. I'm not really concerned if it's completely even or not. That doesn't really bother me. Like if it's centered on the paper, I can always, like I might, because this is a round print, I might trim my paper around it anyway. And then you just press, hold it in one place and kind of really press it down. And this is where you can get like kind of excited. You can be like, okay, what do you think it's gonna look like? Because one of the things about printmaking that I love is that it reminds me of, like, I went to school for ceramics, and it reminds me a lot of ceramics when you do glazing, because there's always this element of surprise. and you don't know what it's going to turn out like until it's completely done. So it's like definitely trial and error, and that is actually a really great, it's a really great way to kind of learn and do inquiry, like ask lots of questions and get your child to kind of make hypotheses and trial and error and kind of figure out what's going on. So printmaking and ceramics are both really great ways to kind of get your kiddo, to kind of help your kiddo think in that way and kind of prompt those discussions. So you guys are actually seeing it before I am because I'm pulling it off so that you can see. And that looks pretty cool. You can see I've got my texture a little bit here. I pulled away and I removed some of my more paint from down here where I was using my scraper. And then you can see my lines from my Q-tips. And then you can also see this really cool kind of texture that's left from, literally just that is from the non-stick coating that is on my pan here. So I actually really like how that turned out. What do you think? So you can really see how you can do some really cool abstract stuff, and you can do some more figurative or narrative things. But even if you just do something so simple, like some just squiggles and some kind of scribbles and squiggles and wiggles, it's gonna look cool. So, and then I'm gonna show you one other thing before I let you go. So I've got another piece of paper, and I actually am not sure that this is gonna work, but we'll see it. When I use other like plexiglass, I will try and do like what's called a ghost print. So like I said at the beginning, mono prints, you get one main print. So I'm only gonna get one print where it looks like this. But a ghost print is, you can see I've got some paint left on my pan or my plate. It looks like it's pretty dry, so it might not work. But I'm gonna give it a spritz because I'm using tempera paint. If you were using like acrylic paint or even like an actual printmaking ink, it doesn't dry as quickly, but we're using tempera because it's nice and washable and readily available. So it dried really quickly, so I'm not actually sure that this is gonna work, but let's see. If you were using something else, you could definitely get a ghost print. But this is, like I said, trial and error. We'll see what happens. What do you think is going to happen? Why? Pretty cool. So you can see that like where I got a lot of spritzing, it kind of almost turned into like a watercolor effect. And then where I have less spritzing, it just turned into a dapple-y effect. You can kind of see my squiggles and circles from my test, from my original print. And you can kind of see where I did the squeegeeing here on the bottom. So like I said, you're never going to get a print with a mono print. A ghost print is always going to be kind of like a shadow. Whereas this is like our official print. So you could collage over that or draw over it. It would look really beautiful with maybe like drawing into it and around it, like a frame. That would be pretty. And then you can, the best thing about mono printing, unlike this, you can run out of styrofoam, but with mono printing, you can easily just wipe this and then add more paint and do another complete brand new print. So if you have paint and Q-tips and some paper and a pan, you could do this with your fingers too. Some kind of controlled finger painting would be really fun for kiddos. Because this is tempera, you know it's going to wash off, and so that's great. And you can do it all over again. We're ready to go again. All right, so I hope you try this out. Let me know what you think. I think it's a really fun technique, and I will see you next week for our third segment on printmaking. We're going to be making a print called holographs, which are really cool. So I will see you next week. Have a great week. Bye.